Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to cover a new topic. We are going to create a full stack application with Angular 18 material, Spring Boot and MariaDB. So these are some prerequisites which we are going to use we are going to use VS Code as an editor, Spring Tool Suite for the backend development, and these are the latest version which we are going to use for the front end side: Angular CLI 18.2.3, Node v 20.11.1, npm 10.5.0, Material 18.2.5. For the backend we are going to Java 17, Spring Boot 3.2.5, and Maven we are going to use. And as a database we are going to use MariaDB, and there are some other tools like HeidiSQL we are going to use to create database and tables on the MariaDB database side. And finally, we are going to use Postman tool to test our REST APIs, which we have written on the backend side through Postman, and we can verify the response and verify cross check all the APIs, though if those are working as expected or not through this Postman. We can use various HTTP methods like get, post, edit, put or delete, and through which we can test all those REST APIs. So this is about all the prerequisites which we are going to cover in this video. So these are some points which we are going to cover in sequence. Like first we will see our architecture, student architecture. Basically we are going to cover student system and the subsystems involved in that. Next we are going to see our application user interface. With that you will come to know like how our application interface will look like, so I will show that. Next, like we are going to create a database and table for MariaDB database. Here we are going to use HeidiSQL user interface through which we are going to create database and tables for MariaDB. Next we are going to create our backend application using Spring Boot. In that, like we will first create our Spring Boot application. Next we will configure MariaDB database in Spring Boot application. Next we will implement CRUD operations on the backend side in Spring Boot application, and finally we will test our CRUD APIs using Postman. So this is about all the points which we are going to cover on the backend development as a part of backend development. Next thing, on the front end side we are going to create our front end application using Angular version 18, and we will create our Angular 18 standalone application. Next we will create our material table using Angular material library, and we are going to implement CRUD APIs. Alongside with that we are also going to implement some important features like filters, sorting and pagination with the help of Angular material. And finally we will test our functionality end to end through UI browser and verify the result on the MariaDB database side. So this is about all the points which we are going to cover in sequence. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end. So this is about an architecture part which we are going to cover. So we on the front end side we are going to create our student web front end application using Angular 18, which is a standalone application we are going to create. In that we are going to use Angular material library to create the mat table, and in order to give a call to our service layer HTTP methods, we are going to use HTTP client through which we are giving a call to our service HTTP methods. And on the backend side we are going to create our student service in which we are going to implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. And as a database we are going to use MariaDB. So we are going to create database and table on the MariaDB database side, and basically we are going to create database and table for student, so it will hold the student related data. So this is about all the architecture for our student system, and these are some subsystems involved in that we are going to achieve or implement in this video. So I will request you to please this is my channel Code for Tech Solutions. I will request you to please subscribe this channel, and I have created number of videos on full stack. Like these are some list of videos which I have created, so you can visit my channel and choose the video which you like to watch. Like these are some combination of React plus Spring Boot as well as React plus Node.js. So these are all full stack applications I have created. So you can visit my channel, and I have also created full stack application with the combination of Angular plus Spring Boot as well as Angular plus Node.js. So you will find these videos very interesting. So I will request you to please visit my channel and watch the video which you like most. Fine. So without any further ado, so let us jump into the our actual points. First, we will see our user interface. Now, this is our user interface will look like. So this is the header part, and this is the search filter through which we can search our data. Like let's say if we can search for name and for email as well, and if you want to search related to the department, so accordingly the data will get filtered out. Fine. So this is about search filter. We are also going to implement sorting logic. Here we can see this is getting sorted in descending and ascending order. Similarly, this is for name, this is for email, and this is for department. So this is about the sorting functionality we are also going to implement, and these are the headers and these are the action buttons like edit and delete. We are going to implement as a part of table, and these are the edit and delete action buttons, and this is the add button. Okay. Now below this table we can see this is the pagination part, and from here we can control the number of data. Like we can see a number of records per page or items per page, and this is the next page. If we click on next, it will show the next 4 records, and likewise it will keep on showing until we reach the last record. So once we reach the last record, the next page or the last page will get disabled because we do not have any further items or page to show. Similar way, once we click on previous page, it will take us to the previous page, and once we reach on the first page, the previous page and first page buttons will get disabled because we do not have any previous page or items to show. So this is about the pagination part. Apart from that, we have this add button. Once we click on add button, it will open the student form wherein we can enter our student related data, like it's a name. We can enter any name, like let's say Sanjay, and here we can add the email sanjay@gmail.com, and department we can say it's an physics, and we can submit. Now we can see the entry is added successfully as a part of as a last record. Now similar way, if you want to edit any record from here, like so let's say this is the we can take any record to edit, like so we can take this record for Prakash, and here instead of Prakash we can change it to like let's say James, and here subject or department we can take as an chemistry. Let us check the second record, sorry James third record. It is successfully updated with the click of edit button. So this edit button, like once you click any record, so accordingly that data will get populated into the edit this student form. Basically this student form we are going to use for edit and add purpose. Fine. So similar way, if you want to delete any record, let's say if you want to delete this record, it will ask for the confirmation box. Once you click on OK button, the record will get deleted from the table. So this is about all the functionalities, like we are going to achieve the CRUD functionalities as well as we are going to achieve search or filter, sorting, and pagination using Angular material. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end so that you will not miss anything in between. So let us start our actual implementation part. Now we can create one folder and can copy it Now here we can switch the workspace. Now before we start our backend development, first we need to create our database and table. So what we can do, so you can open this HeidiSQL, which provides an user interface for the database management of MariaDB. So you can install it and open it, and you will see the interface like this one. Now you can click on the session. Here you can see create new database option. Here you can name your database, like in our case it's an, let's say, student underscore master. Inside this we can create one new table with name student, and here we can add the columns, like let's say it's an ID, and we can use okay, so we can use big int, and here we can make it as a primary key. Fine. And here like for this one we can make it as an auto increment. So this is about ID, which is auto increment, and it's in primary. Next thing what we can do, next we can add next column as an name, which is a varchar. We can define some length it here, like let's say 100. Fine. Similar way we can add one more, it's for email, and next we can add for after email, like department, and for department we can make it somewhere length we can mention. Fine. So we have added 4 columns with 4 different data types. We can save it. Now we can see our student table is created successfully. Now here we can run our table, and we can see this is empty. It is just showing the column headers. So with this, like, we have created our database on the MariaDB database side. Like the database name is student underscore master, and inside that we have created student table with columns like ID, name, email, and department. Fine. So we are done with the database and table creation. Now let us create our backend application. We can use this option, create new Spring Starter project, and here we can name it like it's a student, let's say service. Here we can choose Maven as a build type, jar as a packaging, Java 17 we can use, and here we can use com.student, and we can keep artifact as is, and here we can mention like student service detail. Here we can mention package com.student. Here we need to add the dependency. We need to add Spring Web, Spring Data JPA. Again we are going to use MariaDB driver, and finally we are going to use Lombac. Fine. So we have added all the required dependencies. Now the project is import is in progress now. Now we can see this is the Spring Data JPA, through which we can create our repository and entity part, and this is the Spring Starter web we are going to use for web related development, and this is the MariaDB database driver, through which we can connect to the database, and this is the Lombac dependency. We can remove the boilerplate code, and we can use it for getter setters of bean as well as properties. So this is about all the dependency we have added. Now let us do one thing. We can build our application first using maven install. Now our test is failing. For now we can comment out the test, and let us rebuild our test again. So we can run our application with option run as Spring Boot application, and here we can see it is failing because by default it is trying to kind of access the H2 database properties, and whereas we have added MariaDB database dependency. So we need to do one thing, we need to add the properties for MariaDB. So here we can configure our MariaDB properties in our application.properties. First we can change our server port, we can make it like 8081. Next we can add MariaDB database related properties, like this is the URL which is JDBC, here MariaDB, and it's a local host and it's a 3308, and here we can mention our database name which is student underscore master in our case. So similar way we can add username. So username is a root in our case. If you have created some custom user or new user account, you can use that. Here we can add the password which is the root and 123 in our case. Next thing we can add driver class name, and here we can mention MariaDB driver. Next we can use spring.jpa.hibernate.ddli2 as an update, and finally we can add spring.jpa.showSQL as a true, so that it will show us the executed queries in console. So this is about the MariaDB configuration we are done with in Spring Boot application. Now let us rebuild our application. So our build is success. Now let us rerun it using command run as Spring Boot app. Now you can see our application is running fine on port 8081. Now let us focus on our actual implementation, CRUD implementation part. For that, first we need to create the packages. We can create different packages, like first we can create our entity package. Next we can create our repository package. Next we can create our service package, and finally we can create our controller package. Now we have created these different packages. Now let us add the respective component. First we can create our entity with name like student. Here we can add all the respective annotations like entity, @ all our constructors, no are constructors @data and @builder. Now we can add import for these things. Now here we can mention the what all properties we are going to use, like we are going to use id as a long, next private string name, next is an email, and this is for department, and we can save it. Now for this id field we need to add id annotation, as well as we need to add generated value annotation. Here we can mention strategy is equal to generation type as an auto. So with this, like, we need to add import for id. Fine. So with this auto, it will keep on incrementing this id field by 1 every time we insert the student object into the database. Now we are done with our entity creation for student. Let us create the repository part. Here we can create an interface with a name student repository, and we can annotate it using stereotype like repository, and here we can extend CRUD repository. Here we can mention our entity name and the data type of our primary field, and we can add the imports. So we are done with our repository creation. Now next thing, we can create our service part. Now here we can create our service with name student service. It's an interface. Now here first of all we can implement our get mapping, like get method, which will return all the students from the database, like get all students we can say, which will return, let's say, list of student, and this is the method name. Let's save it. Can add import for list and student as well. Fine. Now this is about the first method in service interface. Now we need to create one implementer class with name student service impl, and for this class we can add service stereotype annotation, and here it should implement student service interface. We can add the unimplemented methods right here. Now for this, like, first we need to auto add our student repository. Now we can call the respective methods on this repository so that it will return all the students. Like we can call find all. Now here we need to cast it to the list of student. Fine, and we can save it. So this is about get all students service implementation. Now let us create our controller class with name like student controller, and we can annotate it using a race controller. Here we can auto add with student service. Now here we can implement the get mapping, and here for path we can use some best practice like API version v1, and we can add endpoints like students, and it should be returning the list of students with no parameters, and the method name we can say fetch all students, and we need to call the method on this like get all students. So this is about it will fetch it will return all the students from the database and show it. So this is about get mapping. Now we are done with our get mapping. Similar way, now we can add our next method like it should return the student object, or we can say it's fetch by id, and we can pass the long id as an input. So this is the interface method. Now we need to provide the implementation for this method. So here we can call the respective method on this repository like find by id. This is the id we are passing. Now it will return the optional, so we need to get the exact object. We can call the get method on that. Fine, we can save it. So this is about fetch by id. Now here we need to, so we are not going to use add a controller method for this, rather we are using it at the service level. Next method we can add like that is for like we want to create our student, so we can say create student, and we can pass the input student which need to be inserted into the database, and this is the method. Now we need to provide the implementation for this one. So we have added. Now we can call the respective method on the repository like save, and here we can pass this input object student to be saved into the database. So this is about create student. Now we need to add into the controller for the create student. Now this is the create student, and here we can pass this is the create student. Here we need to pass the input. So here we can use the request body, and this is the input student which we need to pass to service method, so that it will get updated into the created or inserted into the database, and return type should be particular student. Now here we can use the response entity in which we can wrap this return type. Now here we can use OK, or we can add the import for this response entity. Fine. Similar way we can use response entity at here as well. And we can wrap this return type, which is a list of student, into response entity. Fine. Okay, so we are done with our post mapping. So here we need to change it to the post mapping. So we are done with our post mapping. So let us add one more method, which is for updating the student into the database, and for that we can use update student method. Now we can save it. Now inside service, we need to service implementer class, we need to add provide the implementation, and here we can use the same, and considering this is the modified object, we want to update into the database. Fine, we can save it. Now to update the object, like what we can do here, we can first retrieve the student object from the database by using our method, like this is the method. This method will return the actual particular student object for this ID, and this is the student object. We can call get ID. Fine. And this is the student object which we have retrieved from the database against the ID passed. Now we can check if it is not null. In that case, we are going to add set the values. Like first we can set the department from this input object. Next we can set name. So what we have done, so what we have done, we have retrieved the student object from the database for this ID. Now this is the modified object which has some new values which need to be updated into the database. Now this is the retrieved object from the database. We have set the values from this modified object. Now this modified object we are going to update into the database by calling this save method. That's it. Now next thing, like we can implement our controller method for the same. Now this is the post mapping. We can add put mapping, and here method name we can use like update student. And apart from this request body, we are going to use path variable, and here we can pass ID which is of type long. This is the ID. So we can add the import for this put mapping, and here we need to add the ID as well. Pass the ID as an input parameter. Next thing, like this is the update student, and here we need to call the respective method as an update student, and here we need to pass the modified student. So fine. So we are done with our put mapping method. Now here for put mapping we can pass long id and the modified student, and similar way we can modify it here like long id and the student, and here we can pass this id. That's it. Seems good. Now here we are passing the id as well as a first parameter against which this object need to be updated into the database. That's it. Now next thing what we can do, we are done with our put mapping. Now last thing we can add our delete method. We can name it like delete student, and for deleting the student, so this is the student which need to be deleted. We can add the method for the same here, and for deleting, like we can copy as is, sorry, so okay, here we can copy this much code. Fine. Sorry, so we need to copy this much code. Now here we can retrieve the object from this student input. Here the id is enough. So this is the okay student. Okay, so actually for deleting just id is enough, no need to pass the actual student. On basis of id we are retrieving the object anyhow and passing to be deleted. So here just long id is enough, and the same id we are going to pass it here as an input. That's it. Now we received this student object from the database for the id. Now same we need to remove or delete. Now we can call delete, and here we can pass this object which we have just returned from the database. Now the delete method is returning as void. So here we need to mention some string like to null, and here we can prepare some string like student is deleted successfully from for id, and here we can mention the id. This is the id. Finally we can return delete message. So delete message. Now here this delete method should return the string, and we can save, and same we need to change into the interface part as well. Fine. So for this id we want to delete the student, and the return message the student is deleted successfully will get returned post successful deletion. This is about the delete service level implementation we are done with. Now here we can add the delete mapping in a controller, and here we can use delete mapping. Here just id is enough. We are just going to pass this id, and here the name is like delete student, and here the return type should be string. Fine, so this is the delete mapping, return type should be string, and this is the ID we are going to pass to the service method, which is a delete student, and finally it will return the message post successful deletion. That's it. Now we are done with our delete mapping as well, so we are done with all the CRUD operations. Now let us do one thing. We need to add cross origin as well, because we are going to get request from the Angular application. Fine, we can save it. Now here we are done with our all the CRUD implementation part. Now let us test our APIs using Postman. Now let us rebuild our application first by using this run as maven install command. And here we can use run as Spring Boot app. Now our application is running successfully on port 8081. Now let us open the Postman. So this is our, you can copy this. We need to add as a part of URL. And our port number is 8081. So which we have mentioned in our properties file. This is the 8081, and same our application is running on. Fine. So this is first we need to check get method. It here, like we can remove this. It is showing the empty array, which is as expected because we do not have any data as of now. Now let us add some records, like we can add these few records. Here we can test our, we can add one post mapping through which we can add the entries. Now here we can copy this URL which is for get mapping and edit it post mapping here. To add the entry, we can, this is the first entry we want to check by adding into the database. Now we can see our record is created successfully into the database. Now if you want to cross check, we can rerun this query. Seems good. Now let us create few more records so that we can check whether it is incremented by 1. Fine, this is 2, and so this is 3, and this is 4. Now if we call back the get method again, we can see we have 4 records which we have added successfully. Seems good. Now our post is working fine. Now let us test our put mapping here. This is the JSON, and here we can add our, we can copy one record, and we need to modify it first. Like we can copy, instead of Sangeeta, let us say Satya Prakash, and same we need to add for as a Gmail, and here we can make as an department as an computer, and we can, now here for updating or using the put mapping, we need to add the ID as well along with this modified record. Fine, let us check. Now we can see the record is updated. Now if we go back and check for the 4th record by calling the get method, so it is the same Satya Prakash is reflecting, and we can cross check into the database as well. The 4th record we have modified. Seems good. Now it is working. Now finally we can test our delete mapping, and we can use delete HTTP method. For that we can simply add this URL, and for deleting the student from the database we just need to pass the ID, which is enough. And here it is showing the successful deletion message for ID 4. Now if you go back and call our get method, it should show 3 records, which is as expected because 4th record we have just deleted. We can cross check into the database. Seems good. Everything is working as expected. Fine. With this we are done with our backend implementation part, and CRUD functionalities we have implemented and tested through Postman. Now let us focus on the UI part. So let us first close the existing instance of VS Code, and let us open a new instance of VS Code. We can open new terminal at here. Now here we can create our new Angular application using command ng new, and here we can name our application like it's a student -web, and we can click. We can choose the CSS, and here server side rendering we can say no, and it has started installing the packages. We can wait till it installs. Now it has successfully installed the packages, and it has created our student-web application. Now here this is the package.json, and inside which it has added these all the Angular related dependencies of version 18.2.0. So before that, so let me tell you what all versions we are using. It's like Angular CLI 18.2.5. This is CLI version, and Node 20.11.1. Let me show you npm version as well, which is 10.5.0. so these are all latest version we are going to use. Fine. Now we have just used ng new and our application name. With this it will create a new Angular application, and as we are using Angular 18 version, it will create an Angular standalone application by default with command ng new. Now let us go to our project folder, which is like student web, and here we can run our application using command ng-serve-o. It will launch our application into the browser. Let us type y. Fine, our application is running fine. Okay. Now let us now our application is running fine. So let us create one new terminal. Open the new terminal, and here we can go to our project folder. Now here first of all we can install our Angular library, so Angular material library, which we have not added. So before do that, so first of all we need to do like our backend application is running on port 8081 and our front-end application is running on port 4200. Now this is the cross platform, or these are the both different applications. So here we need to create one proxy so that we can establish a communication in between these two. Now we can create one file with name proxy.config.json, inside which we can mention like this is /API, and here we can mention as an target, which is like we can copy the URL, base URL, like till our port, and add it at here, and we can add secure as a false. Fine, we have saved. We can save it. As we are using localhost, we are using this one. If you have some other host than the localhost, you can use change origin, add it here like this one, and add your host which is other than localhost. Fine. Now for the in our case we are using localhost, we can save it. We have created proxy.config.json file. Now we need to make an entry in our SUR folder, which is angular.json file. Inside that, here we can add options, and inside which we can use proxy config, and here we can give the path of our file, which is proxy.config.json. That's it. We can save this file as well as this proxy.config file. Now we are done with our proxy configuration on the Angular side. Now let us do one thing. We can add our Angular material. So if you go back at package.json, we can see we do not have Angular material. Now let us add that. We can use ng add @angular/material command. This command will add the Angular library into our applications. Now we can say y to install material 18.2.6, and for now we are going to use default theme, and here for typography we are using yes, we are using this typography, and include and enable animations. Yes. Now we can see our Angular material is added successfully. Fine. Now let us add some routing logic. So before this, let us create the Angular components which all needed. So we can use like ng generate command, and first we can create one module with name student. We can say this student module is created successfully. Next thing, like we can create one service inside this student module with name student itself. We can see this service is created. Now we can generate the component for inside this service module, and our component name is a home, wherein we are going to show our data, and we can use -- standalone. So this is the home component which we have created. Sorry, it's a service it has created into. So we can remove. Let us go back to our Angular application. We can remove from here. No, the actually home component we have created. Fine. So which is as expected, right? So it is showing inside home. So this is the student. So we can actually it should show inside student, not at service. So that is the problem. Okay, can open this folder, copy this and check where is our. So this is the project, or let us try to delete from here itself. Yes, now we have deleted our. So we have created student and service, and this service we can delete. Fine. So what we have done, we have created this student module. Next we have created this service which is inside this. This is the service and this is the module. Fine. Now this component, home component, we should create inside student, not service. So that was the mistake. Now here we can correct it and recreate the component again. We should be inside student module. Fine, now it seems good. It has created home component and it has its own CSS, HTML, test file and TS file. Similar way, we can create one more component with name like student-form. Now finally we can create one more, last component like it's an interface which is again inside student, and we can name it like student. Fine, we are done with our component creation. What we have done, first of all, we have created our student module. Inside that we have created our student service. Next we have created the home component, and next we have created student component. Now each component has its own CSS, HTML, test file and TS file. So this is for home, and home component we are going to use to show the table and data along with the action items like edit and delete button. And we are also going to show the add button on click of which we are going to open the dialog form. So once we click on add button, it will open this student form, and this is the component which we are going to use for add and edit purpose. And on click of add button, we are going to open the material dialog box, and it's in that we are going to use form fields for name, form input field for name as well as email and department, and it will have submit and cancel button as well. Fine. So we have created our component successfully. Now let us do one thing. We can add some routing logic at here. We can mention the path, and this is the student slash home, and we can use what component we are going to use, like its own component. Fine, we can copy this, and here we can use redirect to, and this is the student slash home, and here we can use path match as a full. We can copy this, and this is for blank address. Fine. So what we have done, so if the URL path is with student slash home, it will open the home component, or it has student, again we are redirecting to the home component. And if there is an empty URL, still we are going to redirect to the home page, and home page is nothing but our home.html. This is the home page. Now we have added our routing successfully. Now let us save it. Next we need to go to our app.component.html. Here we can remove this, and to check our router, to let our router work, we need to add router outlet, and we can save it. Now you can see it is working fine. So this is the home, like home works, and it is showing same. So our router is working fine. So before we add any further code, so let me tell you the entry point, as this is the Angular standalone application. So this is main.ts from which our application will get bootstrapped, and it will use the app config for bootstrapping the application. Like here, these are providers. We need to mention like what all things we are using as a provider. We can configure within this file, which is like app.config.ts. This will get used in our starting main.ts file. Fine. And after that, it will use this app.component.html and will render this part. Now here we have mentioned the routing logic, so it will route to the our home component, which is it here, and it is showing our home.html. Fine. Now let us focus on our home page design, like the page design for our full stack application. On home page, we are going to show what all things, like we can first create one root container inside which we are going to add form fields. Now here we can add some style, like width we can mention, margin left 30 pixel, let's say margin top 20 pixel. Now here inside this first item we are going to show as a header, and here the header is like we can make it bit strong or bold, and our header name is it's a full stack with Angular 18 material, Spring Boot, and MariaDB. So this is the header. Next thing, we can add one line break. After this, we can save it and to check like it is showing the header as expected. Now we can add some color, like, and we can add text align as a center. Seems good. So after this, like we can add one mat form field. Now here to use this, we need to add it into our import ts file. Mat form field module. We need to add the import for this, and this should be from Angular material form field. You can save it. Fine. Now this is the mat form field, inside which we need to add one input, and here we can mention it as an mat input, and placeholder we can add search student, and we can save it. Now to use this mat input, we need to add mat input module. Can save it. Seems good. Now it is not reflecting it here. This is the input. Fine. Now let us rerun our application and check how it works. Okay, seems good. Yes, now it is showing. Now next to this, like, we can add one button, and we can add one button, and here we can use mat flat button, and we can name it like add plus, and here we can add some style like width. We can mention 100 pixel, and we can add float. Right side it should show with margin as in 15 pixel, and we can save it. Now here for this mat button we need to add import in TS file like mat button module, and we can save it. Now it seems good. Now next thing what we can do, like after this button we need to add our actual table part. So to add the table part, what we can do, here let us open some, here we can search for Angular material table. Now this is the table. We can go and check view code, and we can copy this part. And we can edit it here. We can save it. Now it is giving some error. Now we need to add TS part, and this is the displayed column and data source we need to add. We can go to TS, sit here. Here we can add this. For data source we can use new mat like table data source, and here we can use like our student object and create. We can import this. Fine. Now for this student we can define what all attributes we are going to use, like its number, ID, name as a string, next email as a string, and final department, which is again a string, and we can save it. Now here we have data source, and these are the columns. Now let us check and save it. Now we need to add this mat data source table, like we need to import like a mat table module, and we can save it. Now we can see it is showing the headers. These are the table headers it is showing. Now these are the table headers where exactly we have added home.ts. These are the table headers, column names it is showing. Now we want to show our own columns, not these. Like we want to show like ID. First should be the ID, name as is, email, and finally it should be department, and we can save it. Now here it should be matched with the this mat column depth, so we can change it accordingly. Here it should be email and it's a department, and we can save it. Fine, it is showing. No, it is these are the names which will get shown on the UI, so we need to change it accordingly. Now we want first column as a student ID, next as a name, next as an email. These are the headers which will get shown on the UI. Finally, it's a department. We can save it. Seems good. Now it is showing as expected. These are the headers. Now here we can define one constant like, let's say, students, which is of type student array, and we can initialize it with array. We can define one constant as a student which is of type student, and here we can mention ID as a 0, name as a blank, email as a blank, and department as a blank. You can save it. Now this student variable we can use into it here. This is the row. For this we can use the students, and for element we can use this actual student. We can use it here for all the elements which are there. So this is more readable because we are using the elements as student actually, and we can call the names like student ID, student name, and this should be email, and this should be department. Fine, and we can save it. Seems good. Now header are showing as expected. Now it is not showing any data because we have not created any data. Just this is the empty mat data source we are showing. Now let us do one thing. We can create our get all student API on the Angular side. So first this is the student service. Here we can use our await service variable HTTP client, and this is the of type HTTP client. Next thing what we can do here, we can write one method, like we can use one, define one base URL variable which is of type string, and here we can use for the base URL. So we can copy this much URL and add it at here, which will act as a base URL. Now we can use fetch all like students method, and here which is like observable and of type can use student. Now here we can use it to return like this dot HTTP client dot, we can call get method, and here it is returning the student array, and we can call this get method, and inside backtick we can use this base URL. That's it. We can complete this statement. Now return. Here it should be student array. Now we can save it. Seems good. Fine. So we have added the fetch all student method inside the student service now, and we are using the HTTP client provider on which we are calling the get method. Now to use this HTTP client, as we are using the Angular 18 version, so we need to add the particular provider for this one. Let us say we can add provide HTTP client. Fine, and we can save it. Now we have mentioned this is the client provide HTTP client we are going to use. and we are actually using this HTTP client. Now this method will return all the student which are available in the database by calling our backend URL, backend application, which is this one. Now we need to consume this return data in our home.component.ps. Now here we need to implement, like here after view unit, and here accordingly we need to implement the particular method like this one. Now here we need to add constructor, we need to define the constructor, and here we can use private, and this is the student service. Fine. Now here inside this we can call this dot student service, and on which we can call this method fetch all student, and we need to subscribe, and this is the data as a callback, and here we can mention this dot students is equal to, this is the data which is written from this one. Now we can save it. Now we can see we have captured the data which is returning from the service, and we have assigned it to this variable which is a student. Still it is not reflecting on the UI, because if we go back on HTML, home.html, we are using data source, so we need to populate the data source. Now here this is the initialization of the data source. Now we need to populate this data source with the actual data which is returned from the service, and here we can use this dot data source, and we can save it. Now we can see it is showing all the records which are present in the database. Now we can see we have 3 records, and the same 3 records it is showing. Now let us do one thing. In order to apply the search, sorting, and pagination, we need more records, so we can add few more records. Let me copy some records. We can go to post mapping it here, and we can add like few records. Now we have added 10 records. If we call the get mapping, you see we have 10 records. Fine. Now let us check by refreshing. So now we have 10 records. Fine. Now let us implement our search filter. So for that, let us go to our input. This is our input here. So student, we can add one filter, and here we can add on click. Once we enter any input into the input box, that time we need to call like search student, or we can name it like filter student, and here we can call filter dot value. We need to add one method for this one at here, and this is the input, which is of type string, and we can mention like here. So to capture the filtered list, we need to define one variable, and we can name it like this is the filtered students. Now here you can say like this dot filtered students equal to, we can actually filter on original students list, this dot students, and here we can call filter, and let's say atom, for each atom dot name dot we can use two lowercase, and here we can use like includes, and for this is the input dot, we can use two lowercase. So this is about the name. So this is about the name. So let us copy it. Similar way we can add for email and for department. Likewise, you can add as many columns you want to filter. Those many columns you can include it here. So now we have this filtered list. So this is like okay, so here we can remove this, one extra bracket is there. So this is the completion of, no, this is fine, it should be there, fine, and we have completed, this is the completion of this one. Next thing we need to complete this bracket as well, fine. Now here we need to use like this dot. Now what we can do, now our data source should show the filtered list, not the actual data. So we can pass it as an this filter students, we can pass to the data source. Now let us check. Fine. Now let us check how it works. Here you can search for Yuvraj Singh. Fine. Next you can Prakash. Fine. Abhijit, and we can check politics as a department. Maths seems good. So filter is working fine on the table data. Next thing what we can do, we can implement the sorting logic. For that we can go back at here, and this is our sorting section. Now here we can check how it has implemented it here. Now to implement the sorting, we need to use this mat sort at table level. So this is our table, we can add mat sort. Next thing we can add mat sort header for our columns. So these are our columns, like we can add mat sort header. Next column, this is for email, this is for department. Now inside TS we can see we need to define this variable, and we need to add input for this one. Now we need to add import for this sheet here, like we are going to use mat sort module, and we can add the same. What next we need to do, like we need to initialize it to our data source, it here, and we can save it. Now let us check how it works. You can save it. So you can see this is the student ID. It is in descending order, and this is in ascending. Similar way, this is for name, for email in ascending and in descending, and this is for department. Seems good. Now our sorting is working fine. Next thing, we can focus on our pagination part. So let us check where is the pagination. So this is the pagination section, and here we can check how it has implemented. Okay, so this is the mat paginator. We can copy and go back to our home.html, and here before the table closes, after it has closed the table, we need to add next line as pagination. Now here we can check what all things it has added, like mat paginator variable we need to use in our TS file next to this one, and we can add import for this one, and this should be, and we can save it. Now we need to add import for like mat paginator module, and we can save it. Now this is the pagination part. Now we can see it is showing the pagination. Since good, here we can, okay. Now what else is missing, let us check. Okay, so this we need to add as well inside ng view unit. Fine. Now let us check. Now it seems good. We can see the pagination it is showing, and these are the atoms per page we can control from here. Like let us keep 5. Once we click on next page, it will show the next 5 atoms. Now we have only 10 atoms, so it is showing the second page, like on second page it is showing, and once we reach the last page, it is showing the next page and last page as a disable, which is as expected. Similar way, if we click on previous page, it will take us to the previous page, and once we are on the first page, hence it is disabling the first page and previous page, because we do not have any previous record or page to show. Fine. If we want to change these values, like we can go back it here, and we can use in the multiple of 4, like 4, 8 or 3, 6, 9, whatever you want, you can choose. Fine. Now let us check. It is showing 4 records per page. Now once we click on next page, it will show the next 4 records. Likewise, if we click on the next page, it will show the last next page, and this is the last page. Fine. Similar way, the previous page is working, and from here we can control the number of records per page. So our pagination is working fine as expected. Now let us focus on our CRUD functionalities. Now this is our add button. On click of this add button, it should open the pop-up like material dialog. So for that, so we can do one thing here. We can add on click functionality. Here we can say open student form. and here we can pass the student. Now we need to define the method at here, like and here is the student of type student, and here we need to define one variable. We can use inject, mat dialog. We can add import for this one, and here we can add mat dialog module. We can save it. Here we can use some constant like dialog ref, and here we can call this dot dialog dot, we can call open method, and what component we are going to render, which is like student form component, and inside which we can mention data as a student, which we have passed it here. This is the student. We can say it's std. Same data we can assign as to the data, and we can save it. Now we can complete the statement. Now once we close this dialog ref, in at that time we can call after closed, and we can subscribe, and this is the result. Fine. Now here this is our dialog form, which should open the student form. Let us check how it works. Like, we can save it first. Now it is showing student work forms. Now if you go it here HTML, now it is showing as expected. It is opening the dialog box. Now let us add the actual content at here. Now let us add one container div. Now here we can add some style, width as a 350 pixel. Now here we can mention like first div is for showing the cross button, which we want to place at the right corner of the dialog form. Next we can add one div for the title. Next we can add next div for the content, and next div is for showing the action buttons, and we can save it. Now here we need to add the import for all these, like this is the mat dialog module. We are going to use mat dialog, like title we are going to use mat dialog, content mat dialog, actions, and we can save it. Now here we can go it here. Now here first of all we can use here the button we are going to use and this is like mat icon button, and we can add some style like float right corner, and the margin we can mention 15 pixel. Next thing, like we can add mat icon, we can add style color as a red because this is the close button we are going to show. Now here we need to add the import for this one, like this is like first mat button module, next mat input module, fine, and next like mat icon module, again we need to add mat icon module, you can save it, fine. Now if we click on add button, now it is showing the close button, seems good. Now next thing, like this div is for showing the mat title, mat dialog, its title, and for title we can define some header, and it is a student form. We can add some style as a color, and here text align we can make it center, seems good, seems good. Next thing, here we can add mat dialog content, and this is for mat dialog actions wherein like we are going to add submit and cancel button. Now for content we are going to add like mat form field, inside which we are going to add one input which is like mat input, and here we can add one placeholder like enter name, that's it. Now here we need to add the import for these two, like mat form field module we can add, mat input module we have already added. Now let us check how it looks, seems good. Now here we can add mat icon next to this input field, we can say font icon person, and here we can add mat suffix so that it will show next to the input. We need to save it, seems good, it is showing as expected. Now this is for name. Similar way we can add one more, we can add line break, this is for email, one line break, and this is for department. If you know the exact icon for department you can add, I am keeping as is now. This is the email, we can copy and edit it here. Now let us add action buttons as well so that everything looks good. Now here we can add button, and this is the mat flat button. You can use, there are various options like you can use mat eraser button, mat stroked button and kind. So we can use mat flat button, and here we can say it's a submit button, and we can add one more button, this is for cancel, and here we can give color as a want to cancel, we can save it, and here we can align center. Now let us open the dialog form. Seems good, everything is fine. Now once we click on cancel, it should close the dialog box, material dialog. So we can use mat dialog close as a true. You can save it. Seems good, working fine. Now here we can add mat dialog close, and here we can add the actual data. So whatever there, if we enter on submit, it should be added. Fine. So this is about the form, material dialog form. We have opened it successfully. On click of add button. Now once we click on submit button, once we add something at here like name, email and department, once we submit, it should get saved into the database. Now here we can call click method. On click method, we want to call like, this is for add and edit, right? Add or edit, you can say student, and here we can pass this data. Now we need to define one method inside this form, and here it is like student. Now here we need to define one constructor. Can define one private. This is the student service we are going to use, which is of type student service. Here we can use this one. Now we can use this like this dot student service dot. This add or edit method is getting used for addition as well as deletion. So we can use like student dot id is not equal to 0. That means it has some id. That time we can call the update method. Like we need to first implement update and create method inside this service. So let us do that. We can copy this part. Let us first do our create method. Like we can say create student, and it should return just a student, and we need to call post mapping for that on HTTP client. And here we need to pass the data which is of type student, which we need to update, insert into the database. Fine, and this is the same data we are passing. We can save it. Now we have created create student. Now let us go back to our material dialog form. Here this is for updation, code for updation. Now else part means if the employee ID is 0 and it's a new record, in that case we can call student service dot create student, and here we can pass this student which need to be created, and we can call the subscribe method. And for data we can log student created successfully, and in case of error we can log the error. Now we are done with our create method. Now let us check it how it works. So this is the data. So for this data we need to first define one variable, it here. So this is the data, and we can inject student, and this is of student type, and here we need to mention it's a mat dialog data. We need to add import for this inject as well. Fine, seems good. This is the data which we are using into it here. Fine, now let us check how it works. So before we add the data and check our functionality, let us add some. So let us, okay, fine. So let us check this functionality first, how it works. And here we can add, let's say it's a Vivek @gmail.com, and department it's like physics, and submit. So it is not getting added, right? Because here we have not added a ng module, so that the entries will get matched. Okay, so here we can use this ng model, and here we can use like data dot name, and for this to use we need to import common module as well as form module, and you can save it. Now this is for name. Similar way we can use for this ng module we can use it for this input, not for icon. This is it here. For this email we are using, this is the email, and for department we are using it department, and we can save it. Now we can go back to the database, and this is the empty entry. We can delete this rows because it's empty. Okay, fine. Now let us check. So we have this many records. Now once we add, we can add the same record or some new record, like let's say it's a Tom @gmail.com, and here department, let's say it's a maths. Now you can see the record is added successfully. Record is added, but only after we refresh. So what we can do, we can add here, like after this window.location.reload function we can call, so that we do not need to refresh it post successful addition. Now if we need to save it first. Fine. Now we can add one more record, let's say Robert @gmail.com. Department is a chemistry. Now you can see it is added successfully without even refreshing the page. Fine, seems good. Our addition is working fine. Now before we implement our edit functionality, let us add some CSS to the table so that it will look good. Now I have some CSS, and this is the CSS part we can copy, and let us add to our it here, and we can save it. Seems good, it is showing as expected. Now what we have done, like this is the header row and this is the color for header which we have applied it here, and this is the row height 30 pixel, and this is the background color for even rows. Like this is the color for even rows, like this and this, these are the even rows. We have set the color. Seems good. Now fine. Now let us go back and implement our edit functionality. So now to implement the edit functionality, we first need to add the action buttons like edit and delete. So let us go back to our home TS first. Here we need to add the edit column and delete column, and we can save it. Next thing what we need to do, we can copy this ng container, we can add one for edit, next for delete, and here we can mention it's an edit and it's an edit, and here we can remove this and add one button which is like matte flat button. Here we can mention it's edit and we can save it. Now similar way, now let us copy it and add it for delete. Here we can remove, and this is for delete, and this is button for delete. Now for delete we can add one color which is a warm one, right? Fine. Now let us check how it looks. Seems good. Now here we can define some style like height 27 pixel, and width we can mention as an auto, and same we can add to delete button as well. Let us check how it looks. Now it seems good. Fine. Now we have these buttons. Now on click of edit, it should open the form. This is the form we want to open, and this is our edit button. On click of edit button, it should open the form, and this is the student. Fine. Now let us check how it looks. We can save it first. Once we click on this, seems good. This is for Sangeeta. This is Prakash. It is populating the row based on which row we are clicking. Accordingly, the record will get populated into the student form. Seems good. Fine. Now let us check let us add implement our update functionality in service module first. Service level first. Here we can copy this, and here we can implement our put mapping, and this is the update method. Here we can add put, and here we need to add ID as well along with the modified data, and we can save it. Seems good. Now let us consume this in our student form.ts file, and we can copy this. This is the method we can copy and edit it here, and here instead of create we can use update student. That's it. We can say it here student updated successfully. Fine. Now let us check how it goes. Now we can take for this Vijay Kumar, and here we can update it. Instead of Vijay, we can say only, let's say, Kevin, and this is for Kevin. And here instead of politics we can say geography, and we can submit. Now you can see the record is updated successfully, which seems good. That means our update is working fine. If you want to cross check in database as well, we can check. So this is the Kevin which is updated as expected. Now our edit functionality or update or put mapping is working fine. Now let us implement our delete functionality. To implement the delete functionality, so here we can go back at here on HTML home.html, and this is the delete, and here so on this button, like instead of here we can use delete student method, and here we can just pass the ID, and let us check how it goes. We need to define one method at here for delete, and this is the ID which is of number, and here we can call this dot. So here student service we need to call, and on which so first of all we need to implement the delete method on inside student service. Let us do that. So this is in delete, this is for delete, so we can name it like delete student, and just ID is enough. It's a number, and here we can just pass this ID, no need to pass the data. And here we can use delete HTTP method. That's it. Fine. And here call this delete student, and here this is the data. So here we can use, so this is the number. For here we can come, we need to complete the bracket first. Here first of all we can define one constant like is okay, and we can use window.confirm, and here we can mention like are you sure you want to delete, and if he clicks on is okay, in that case like we are going to delete the record, and we can copy this. This is a redundant, we can remove it, and we can place this code inside it here because we want to delete the record. Now here we can use this dot student is equal to this dot student dot filter, and here you can say atom dot id is not equal to this past id. That means we have deleted our this input id, and the rest of the records it is returning. Here we need to pass the id, and we can call subscribe. This is the data. Now let us check for this delete functionality how it works. So this will delete this for this id, and return it will have the rest of the records apart from this id, and this is for refreshing the table. Now let us check how it goes. Now if you want to delete this fifth record, once we click on OK, now the record is deleted, you can see. Now let us check by deleting one more record. This is for Robert. We can click and delete button, and we can see the last record Robert is deleted successfully from the table. If you want to cross check in database, we can see there is no Robert and the other record which we have just deleted. Seems good. Our delete functionality is working fine as expected. Now with this we have completed all the CRUD functionalities, as well as we have implemented the searching sorting pagination part, as we discussed before we start this video. So I will request you to please subscribe this video, like and subscribe the same, and please do visit to my other videos which I have created on my Code for Tech Solutions channel. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm sure you must have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching this video.